Good morning. It's Thursday, the 12th of December. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast here at Arirang's news centre in Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. The Korean government has stepped in to demand public organisations bring their ballooning debts under control, holding organisation heads responsible if they fail to undertake drastic reforms. The leaders of Korea and Singapore agreed to better cooperate in the areas of innovation, construction and research and development. They also discussed ways to jointly bid for infrastructure projects in the ASEAN region. Plus, the United States and Britain temporarily suspend non-lethal aid to Syria's opposition after radical Islamists seize control of rebel bases near Syria's border with Turkey. We begin with a reality check for the nation's under-fire public sector. The government has rolled out comprehensive measures aimed at ensuring financial responsibility and fixing the sloppy management practices that have seen state agencies run up huge debts. Hwang Jie reports.
The Korean government is geared up to fight the mounting debt that public organizations face. Unveiling a set of measures on Wednesday designed to bring the debt under control, it said 41 heavily indebted public organizations will have to reduce their debt levels to 200% of their equity by 2017 from the current average of 220%. The government will initially focus on 12 state agencies, including the Korea Electric Power Corporation, the Korea Land and Housing Corporation, and a public foundation that doles out scholarships and tuition-linked loans.
Those under intensive monitoring will have to release their debt-related information by the third quarter of next year, and the heads will face punitive measures if they fail to improve their debt-equity ratio.
The 12 state agencies saw their combined debt expand by more than 220 trillion won, or roughly $210 billion over the previous 5 years to more than $390 billion last year, making up over 80% of the debt owed by all public organizations in the nation. The debt owed by the nation's 295 public organizations stood at around $470 billion at the end of last year, nearly double from 2007 and almost $45 billion more than the government debt. The public organizations have been under fierce criticism for offering high salaries and other benefits to their employees despite their poor finances. Underscoring the government's determination to improve finances of state-run agencies, it also decided to release a detailed report on their financial health in October every year. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Bipartisan bickering kept the National Assembly from completing its work during the 100-day regular session that came to a close early this week. Lawmakers were back for provisional sessions on Wednesday, hoping to hammer out the details for next year's budget and reforming the nation's intelligence agency. Park Ji-won reports.
The state budget bills topped the agenda as lawmakers at the National Assembly began a provisional session this Wednesday. The much-delayed 2014 budget, which should have been resolved in early December, was reviewed for a second day following a budget committee meeting on Tuesday that was cut short. However, both camps started where they left off on Wednesday, locking horns once again over details of the plan. The ruling Saenuri Party wants the budget to support the Park Geun-hye administration's key national goals, while the main opposition Democratic Party is calling for more cautious spending. While the provisional session will continue until January 3rd next year, the bickering is expected to continue as well. The remaining bills up for vote, such as Investment Promotion Acts, bills on the price ceiling for rent, and free school meals, highlight the divisions between the two main parties. Meanwhile, the Special Parliamentary Committee set up to reform the nation's spy agency, which did not meet on Tuesday following controversial remarks by two Democratic Party lawmakers, is scheduled to meet on Thursday morning. The National Intelligence Service will provide a report to the committee detailing its own ideas for reforming the agency. The special committee also plans to hold public hearings next week to gather public opinions on ways to ensure the political neutrality of the spy agency. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye held her last bilateral summit of the year with visiting Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, where the two discussed ways to further boost economic cooperation. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju reports.
The bilateral summit between President Park Geun-hye and Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong mainly focused on laying the path to further economic cooperation between the two countries. The two leaders in their summit talks on Wednesday saw eye to eye on the need for Korea and Singapore to strengthen cooperation to develop new areas of growth.
이제는 또 창조와 혁신을 바탕으로 해서 새로운 도약을 해야 되는 그런 그 공통의 과제에 직면해 있다고 생각이 됩니다.
Now with new expectations and new domestic social problems, differently but with some similarities, and I think that we can learn from each other's experiences.
The two leaders promised to work together in entering third markets, especially ASEAN member countries, combining Korea's competitiveness in the construction, IT, and manufacturing sectors, and Singapore's strength in finance and distribution. Another important field of cooperation is in research and development. The two sides decided to open the first meeting of a joint science and technology committee set up back in 1997 and also signed a biomedical MOU to expand their technological cooperation to the nano-robot industry. The summit talks with Lee were President Park's last of 2013. It's been a busy year on the diplomatic stage for the president. Since her inauguration in February, she's held a total of 30 bilateral summits with world leaders and made 5 overseas trips to the U.S., China, Russia, Southeast Asia, and Europe. She was successful in securing support for her North Korea policy from other countries, including permanent member nations of the UN Security Council. Through her sales diplomacy, Korea saw progress in FTA talks with many nations, including Indonesia, Vietnam, and Canada, and won support for Korean companies. However, there remain challenges for President Park when it comes to China and Japan. China's unilateral announcement of a new air defense zone has raised tensions in the region, and the Korean government still has unresolved matters with Tokyo, such as the Japanese government's push to exercise its collective self-defense and other historical issues. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
The Korean government has strongly urged Japan to remove an internet video clip which promotes Korea's Dokdo Islets as Japanese territory. The video was posted on a number of Japanese government websites on Wednesday. The roughly 1.5-minute clip comes in 9 languages, including Korean, and claims that Japan has ownership of the islets. Korea's foreign ministry protested to the Japanese embassy in Seoul on Wednesday and requested the video be removed immediately. The recent posting comes despite Korea's protests last month after Japan posted an English version of the video clip on various websites. With the timeline for the transition of wartime operational control from the US to South Korea still uncertain, the two sides will hold their first director-level working group talks in Seoul starting Thursday. The working group was formed after a security consultative meeting in October. It aims to assess the readiness of the South Korean military for the OPCON transfer and set an appropriate transition timeline. The transfer was originally planned for December 2015, but Seoul had asked for a delay amid increasing North Korean nuclear and missile threats. Seoul military officials project the assessment to be completed in the first half of next year and expect a final timeline to be drawn up at next October's security consultative meeting taking place in Washington. The nation's rail services are again feeling the strain on this 4th day of the walkout by members of the Railway Workers Union. Freight train services are the worst affected, running at just 37% of normal levels. Express train services have also been hit, but the nation's high-speed KTX bullet trains continue to operate as normal. Around 1/3 of KORail's workers remain on strike, but about 600 have returned to their roles since the strike started on Monday. Out of the over 7,300 workers that have gone on strike, the vast majority, over 6,700, have been removed from their posts. The union launched the strike in protest of Korail's plan to establish an affiliate for a new KTX line. It thinks the plan would eventually lead to the privatization of Korail, mass job losses and fare hikes. Hyundai Motor recently unveiled its most anticipated premium sedan, the all-new Genesis. Korea's largest automaker has high hopes to establish itself in the luxury auto market, but does the new Genesis have what it takes to make that goal a reality? Ji Myung-gil reports.
After more than 5 years of involvement in the premium car market, Hyundai Motor has high hopes for its latest Genesis. Hyundai Motor recently unveiled its most anticipated premium sedan, the all-new Genesis. Hyundai hopes the Genesis will help it compete with world-renowned luxurious brands like Mercedes-Benz, Audi, and BMW. Hyundai plans to sell around 62,000 new Genesis worldwide, including in Korea next year. The Genesis will come with a price tag of between $45,000 and $65,000 in Korea. Hyundai has yet to announce the international price tag. The automaker aims to increase U.S. sales by 10% next year from this year's target of 734,000 units of all Hyundai brand cars. Hyundai also has high expectations for the European market.
We expect to receive good reviews from European customers as the new Genesis offers improved driving, handling, and various high-tech features.
The Genesis is Hyundai's first all-wheel drive sedan, and the model's use of ultra-high-strength steel makes the vehicle sturdier and lighter, giving it a fuel economy of 9.4 kilometers per liter for a 3.3-liter model. It's equipped with a carbon dioxide ventilation system to prevent driver drowsiness and high-end safety features. Hyundai hopes the Genesis will be the stepping stone that takes and solidifies the company's place in the premium auto section. But experts say one premium model may not be enough.
Hyundai needs to keep on developing more than one type of premium model to achieve its goal as a premium automaker. Hyundai also needs to pack new cars with upscale features and must establish Hyundai's own unique design.
Hyundai hopes the all-new Genesis will set a new standard for the company in the premium sedan industry and shift it from a value-for-money car maker to a premium car contender. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
The United States and Britain have suspended all non-lethal assistance to northern Syria, but will continue supplying humanitarian aid. White House spokesperson Josh Earnest said the decision was made after Islamist rebels seized critical infrastructure belonging to the opposition's Supreme Military Council. Fighters from the Islamic Front, a union of 6 major rebel groups, took control of the Free Syrian Army bases at the Bab al-Hawa crossing on Syria's northwestern border with Turkey last Friday. The non-lethal aid includes medical supplies, communication equipment and vehicles. US and European countries have been reluctant to provide weapons and ammunition to rebel groups in Syria, as they believe it might end up in the hands of jihadists affiliated to al-Qaeda. Japan will set up a new amphibious military unit and deploy unarmed surveillance drones in its southwest in response to China's growing military power. This according to drafts of the country's latest security strategy and defense plans that were released on Wednesday. The new strategy calls for Japan to respond calmly and resolutely to the rapid expansion and step up of China's maritime and air activities, which it says are attempting to change the regional status quo by force. The plans say amphibious forces, along with drones and early warning aircraft, will be set up on the southern island of Okinawa. Responding to the plans, China's foreign ministry said Japan was directing unreasonable criticism at its normal maritime and air activities and hyping up the situation for its own political motives. Pope Francis has been named Time magazine's Person of the Year. The magazine said the Pope had pulled the papacy out of the palace and onto the streets during his 9 months in office. The win is not that big of a surprise when you consider Pope Francis was also the most talked about name on Facebook, the most powerful person on Twitter, and the most talked about name on the entire internet. Francis became the pontiff in March this year, following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI in February. NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden was runner-up. Also in the top 10 were gay rights activist Edith Windsor, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and singer Miley Cyrus. And this just coming in now, Korea's central bank has left its key interest rate unchanged for the 7th straight month in December at 2.5%. And of course, we'll be bringing you details on that in our next newscast at noon, Korea time. Last week, kimjang, the Korean tradition of making and sharing kimchi, made the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List. Now the focus is on adding haenyeo, the iconic women divers of Jeju Island, to that list. Kim Yeon-ji reports.
The haenyeo of Korea's southern island of Jeju are a group of women divers who spend their lives combing through the seabed for marine products like shellfish, abalones, and seaweed. The divers have practiced sustainable fishing for hundreds of years by using simple tools. They do not use oxygen equipment, but rather hold their breath for 2 to 3 minutes while diving to depths of 10 to 20 meters. It's a female-dominated profession that developed as a way to support family. And the divers have an exceptional knowledge of the sea, which has been passed on to younger divers for generations. However, the culture is under threat. In 1962, there were more than 26,000 haenyeo in Jeju, but the number dropped to below 4,600 in late 2012. Fewer younger women are joining the profession, and most of the remaining haenyeo divers are in their 70s. Lawmaker Kim Jong-un held a public hearing Wednesday as part of efforts to have haenyeo listed as a UNESCO cultural heritage.
The haenyeo have formed a unique female-led community culture in Jeju. If haenyeo is listed as a UNESCO heritage, the government can provide financial support and quickly come up with the measures to preserve this culture.
54-year-old diver Hong Kyung-ja says protecting haenyeo means preserving Jeju's marine ecology.
We haenyeo dive into the sea under the principle of working and living in harmony with Mother Nature. We never pick small sea snails or abalones. We wait until they grow. We wait until the marine environment is fully developed.
Experts at the hearing stressed that it is crucial to appeal to UNESCO how this important heritage may die out soon if systematic efforts to preserve it aren't taken. They also said Korea should be able to communicate to the world how haenyeo has existed for ages and how it will continue to be an important part of Korean culture, which was something that helped kimjang make it on the UNESCO Intangible Heritage List last week. Kim Yeon-ji, Arirang News.
Now, it's that time of year here in Korea where parents are scrambling to register their kids at local public kindergartens for the next school year. Now, you might expect it to be a relatively hassle-free process, but think again, as the severe lack of spaces makes it a stressful time for parents. Connie Lee explains.
It's one crowded room. Breaths are being held, hands are clasped, and some prayers are being said. These are moms, dads, grandparents, and neighbors who are hoping their numbers get called out. It's a random lucky drawing of 50 spots for this one public kindergarten in Seoul. But the number of people vying for them, nearly 600. There's cheering and clapping for the lucky ones. And also tears. Tears of joy.
Feels like a dream. I didn't expect it, but they said my number 83. I just couldn't believe it. I screamed.
This feels better than when my daughter got into college. But I do feel bad for those parents who didn't get their numbers called. I see how stressed they are.
Stressed and disappointed for those parents going home empty-handed from this drawing.
I didn't get it last year, and it happened again this year. I didn't even get selected to be on the waiting list. I'm very upset.
With a shortage of kindergartens in the nation, especially in Seoul, it's a battle for parents just to get their child into one. In the capital city, there were more than 244,000 children who were eligible to enroll, but the spaces available, less than 10,000. In Korea, children ages 3 to 5 can enroll in private or public kindergartens, or those funded by local or state governments. And public kindergartens, because of their little to no tuition costs, are a favorite choice among parents.
Public kindergartens like ours are in high demand. But because a lot of kids do get cut, there is uproar from parents who say that more public kindergartens are needed.
But from the government's point of view, getting a child into a kindergarten really shouldn't be that competitive.
The government has stepped up efforts to standardize the education system at public childcare facilities with those of kindergartens. So parents shouldn't just depend on kindergartens, but also look into other childcare facilities for their kids' education.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with speed skating. Now with the Sochi Winter Games right around the corner, the South Korean speed skating team roster was revealed on Wednesday, with 8 men and 7 female speed skaters for a total of 15 being added onto the roster. Lee Sang-hwa leads the pack of Koreans hoping to win the Olympic gold. While she'll be competing in the women's 500-meter and the 1,000-meter event, Mo Tae-bum will be competing in the men's side, with Lee Seung-hoon competing in the men's 5,000 and 10,000-meter events. Meanwhile, 35-year-old Lee Kyu-hyuk, who debuted back in 1994, is set to compete in his 6th Winter Games as he hopes to win his first Olympic medal. And now moving on to our Wednesday night's KBL action, we had a couple of games take place, starting off with the Changwon LG Sakers take on the Goyang Orions. Now, first quarter of the game, Chris Massey leading the way for LG as he puts up 10 points in the quarter as LG takes a 23-16 lead after the first quarter. Second quarter, the Orions are able to cut the deficit as LG goes into halftime with a slim 36-32 lead. Third quarter of the game, LG starts running away with the game as they take a 9-point lead going into the fourth, but a huge comeback from the Orions tied this up at the end of regulation. But thanks to Kim Shi-dae's clutch performance, LG takes this game 80-75 as the Sakers are now in first place. And up next, KT Sonic Boom taking on Dongbu Promi. First quarter, KT's Cho Sang-min and Anthony Richardson combining for 24 points in the quarter as KT takes a huge 30-17 first quarter lead before heading into halftime with a monster 53-27 lead. Second half, Dongbu's defense improves as Lee Seung-jun tries to get the team back in the game, but the first half deficit is too big as KT hangs on to take this game 84-70. And now finishing things off with Wednesday's V-League action, Korean Expressway, led by Nicole Fawcett's 40 attack points, beat GS Caltech's 3-1 over on the women's side. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Uricard taking on LIG over on the men's side. Now, first set led by Sean Rooney. Uricard takes the first set 25-18 before LIG levels it up in the second set with a 25-21 set win. Despite Thomas Egger's game-high 24 attack points, Uricard does a great job spreading it around as 4 different players scored double digits, including Sean Rooney with 19 points. Uricard will cruise through in the next 2 sets 25-17, 25-18 as they take this match 3-1. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
And time now to check in on the weather conditions in Korea and around the world. And that's all for now. Thanks ever so much for joining us. We'll be back at noon Korea time, but in the meantime, you can always catch up with what's been happening on our website, arirang.co.kr/news.